Hi everyone, and welcome back again to the Prado Museum. We're here again with our weekly sessions in English, live on the museum's social media programming a few minutes before the museum opens to enjoy a really special place within the museum, the cloister. And this is a project that is supported by the members of American Friends of the Prado Museum, and we encourage everyone to consider getting involved either through the Amigos of the Prado or the Friends of the Prado, and we thank everyone for their support. We're in the cloister. This is part of the extension of the Prado, the new addition to the traditional Villanueva building, and the basis of a lot of new space where the temporary exhibits are taking place. But this beautiful area we're in now is the cloister, and is the cloister of the church next door, the Hieronymus Church, which is the origin of this whole neighborhood in Madrid. This Hieronymus Church was destination of the royal family for spiritual retreats, and this cloister, which was incorporated as the scene for the Prado Museum, and gives us below us the temporary exhibit rooms, the restoration labs, and this wonderful space to see these amazing works of Italian Renaissance sculpture. And this is kind of like a sculptural portrait gallery up here in this area. And so I really encourage everyone to find the cloister when they visit the Prado, because it's a very special place that sometimes we don't see because we are heading always to the traditional Villanueva building. All of the sculpture that we see here in the cloister are works by a father and son. Leoni is the father, and Pompeo Leoni, his son. Italian sculptors that are part of the legacy of the important Italian Renaissance sculptors, following first Donatello, Ghiberti, and then Michelangelo and Leoni's. The works we see here are, like I say, kind of a family portrait. And who we're looking at, we're going to concentrate on today, is this figure, this woman of Mary of Hungary. Now, honestly, I'll tell you that the title Mary of Hungary, when you come to Spanish history from the outside, like in my case, her title doesn't help me know who she is. So I wanted to go over that. She is one of the 6 children of Joanna the Mad and Philip the Fair. So she's sister of Charles V and of Ferdinand, who becomes the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. And she is married, as in her youth, to the heir to the throne of Hungary, who, unfortunately, she becomes a widow very quickly. I think she's a widow when she's 21 years old. But she keeps her title Mary of Hungary. And she is very capable. Politically, her older brother Charles is the head of this Habsburg family, this great dynasty that is really dominating Europe at the time. I'd like to point out that she and her 5 brothers and sisters, all 6 of them, reached to be king or queen throughout Europe through the policy of marriage alliances. I mean, they were really well married, and they were strategic in Europe during their generation. So they're born, these noblest of children, they were all born right at the beginning in the first decade, right at the turn of the 1500s. So Mary of Hungary, she's the widow of the King of Hungary, and her older brother Charles recognizes in her great talent and names her very young as governor of the southern Netherlands. And here we're looking at Charles. This is her brother. And she's governor of the southern Netherlands, very well considered. I mean, there's like 20 years of peace and prosperity in the southern Netherlands under her governorship. So she's doing a really good job. And she's really connected to the arts. And she has a palace on the outskirts of Brussels called the Palace of Binche. And for that palace, she has commissioned to the Leoni a portrait gallery, but a portrait gallery in sculpture. And this would be her portrait that she commissioned and how she wanted to be represented. And here she wants to be represented different in a different style than the other portraits, which are more about power and really elaborate dress. Here she wants to be portrayed as a Christian widow, being one of the most powerful women in Europe, but a Christian widow that she's thinking about spirituality. She's thinking about the next, the afterlife. She's very discreet and wants to not have a lot of decoration. She has the stole on her head, the widow's wimple that covers her hair, and she's carrying a prayer book. And this stole that decorates all of the sculpture that comes down, it ends here in a cross, as if, very much like a nun or what the priests would wear when they're giving mass. So she is very discreet and really thinking about her religious role. Now, for the Leoni, their tradition, Leoni, if we want to look at a second at, because I'm having a hard time pronouncing it, Leoni and Pompeo Leoni. The father was considered the best medalist in northern Italy. But he worked fantastic detail, really small detail, and he, throughout his life, he was introduced to the highest circles thanks to a really interesting figure, which is Pietro Aretino, who was a poet and a critic, and he had access to the high circles of society, but everyone was also kind of afraid of him because he had a very sharp tongue, so no one wanted to cross him. They were from the same place, and so Leoni had a little bit of protection of Aretino, and it opened up different circles, and he was very successful with medals. But then all of Italian Renaissance sculptors are thinking of the classics, the Roman world, the Greek world, because there's more sculpture from the ancient, from these ancient civilizations that reached to them in the 1500s than painting. Renaissance painting, ancient painting there wasn't very much that was left, whereas sculpture, yes, and so they're all thinking of the bronze sculptures of the classical world. And they're all actually really thinking of how to create even an equestrian portrait because of the Marcus Aurelius that reached us today. So Leoni had to go through a process of learning from to being a medalist to creating large-scale bronze figures, which for another session we'll go into how difficult and what a really feat of engineering it is to make to cast bronze with the techniques available. The alloy, the process, it's multi-layered by sections, it's very difficult. And then when they come out of the cast, the sculptor also has to work on the finished piece to bring it together. But anyway, Mary of Hungary, her role was that she recognized the power of the image, and she commissioned to the Leoni this portrait gallery for her palace in Binche. And the portrait gallery would include her nephew, Philip II, her brother, Charles V, her brother, Ferdinand I, and she also was involved with Titian and the portrait of Mühlberg, and she also purchased the descendant of the cross by van der Weyden from the church it was in, and she was a great collector of art and a promoter of this gallery, which we have two of the works here that were for her palace in Binche. And that she was a very, very influential figure who deserves a lot more study. And so we thank you very much just for this brief view of the cloister. There's a lot of work here, and we will welcome and look forward to seeing you again next week.